Hello, how you doing? I'm Craig Parkinson. You are listening to the Two Shot Podcast. Sit yourself down, pop the kettle on. We're going to have a nice old chat. Who's it with this week? I'm going to tell you right now. How the devil are you this week? Everything good? I think everybody's a little bit happier because the sun is peeping out and making everybody smile. I know it is me. This week, it's episode 39, and we sit down with actor and filmmaker Tim Plester. It's a belter. More of that in a second. So last week, I was away out of the country, and I was trying not to turn my phone on and have a bit of a break. And I turned it on Tuesday, and I got a message from producer Griff to say that the Two Shot Podcast has been very successful, and we have been nominated in the British Podcast Awards. We are absolutely over the moon, I can't tell you. We're nominated in the Best Culture Podcast Award category. Now, that's voted for by the judges, and we'll find out more about that at the awards due on May the 19th. Of course, we'll let you know, don't worry. But there's something you can do as a listener, because there is a listener's vote where you can vote for the Two Shot Podcast. It's dead simple, it's dead quick. Go to the British Podcast Awards site, just Google it, you'll find it. Go there to the Listener's Choice Award. You search for the Two Shot Podcast. Click submit. Bingo, you've voted. Now, you can only do that once. And look, we're realistic. Last year, do you know what won? Kermode and Mayo's movie show. And I think they've got a few more listeners than us. But you know what? We've got to be in it to win it. And we need your help. So can you get that done? Bless your cotton socks. So, what else? Oh, I wanted to do a big shout out to Danny Lee and everybody at the BFI who made Saturday, just gone, the Working Class Heroes events at the BFI. Such a success. It was kind of madness throughout the day. There was loads and loads of people there. And we had a great debate. And I think what Danny started is really lit the touch paper for something. And I think we're moving on in a positive direction. If you did turn up, if you popped down, thanks so much. And I'm sorry that we couldn't get to answer everyone. I know there's so many people sticking their hands up and who wanted to discuss things and ask questions. But I think, as Danny said, I think this is just the start. So, yeah, watch this space. So this week, it's episode 39. We travel to London to meet Tim Plester. Now, you might know Tim as an actor. He's popped up in all sorts of stuff over the years. You'll definitely know him from Game of Thrones. And you may know him as a filmmaker. He's made some fantastic, hilarious short films. And more recently, over the years, he's started to make documentaries. His last one that came out a few months ago was an absolute stonker. It's called The Ballad of Shirley. It's done very, very well at the festivals. So if you haven't seen it, do go and check it out. But look, let's get on with it. This is episode 39 with Tim Plester. I'll see you at the end. Yeah, we don't bring that up. It's not about me. Not about me. It's about you. I'll never do one. I'll never do this. Ever.
No?
No.
You not do yourself?
No. What, like Richard Herring playing snooker?
When did he do that?
He plays snooker. He has snooker games by himself and commentates.
Does he?
Yeah.
What, with an audience?
No, just him by himself. It's called Me One and Me Two snooker.
Because I
plays himself at snooker.
Yeah, I used to play myself at golf.
Did you?
Yeah. One would play in quite a reckless way, going for everything, and the other one would be very steady, conservative, and I can't remember who used to win. No, I didn't do it often. I did it once when I was bored on the Isle of Man.
Do you mean you can't remember who used to win? You?
No, reckless or conservative. Which facet of myself was triumphant? I think it was the one who was going for it, rather than playing within himself, you know.
What age was this that you would do this?
Oh, this was late 20s. I was quite old.
Late 20s?
I was quite old.
I thought you were going to say like 7 or 8.
Well, if you're 7 or 8, you're not allowed on a golf course. It's not going to happen.
I used to live near a golf course.
Yeah, well, you probably snuck on, but...
I did sneak on to steal golf balls. Didn't play golf.
No, it's difficult to play golf.
But we just thought I would try and steal the balls.
My granddad used to take me when I was about 7 or 8, and when we were far enough away from the clubhouse, he used to let me hit a few.
Did he?
Yeah.
Was he a golfer?
He loved his golf, yeah. My main memory of that is one day we were there when the Coventry City football team were on the course as well, and we saw Jimmy Hill, who was the then manager.
I mean, you know what I'm like with sports, but I am aware of who Jimmy Hill is.
Yes, Jimmy Hill.
Because, there was a time, we're of a certain age where if school children did lie, the other school children would go, oh, yes, chinny, rack-on.
Chinny, rack-on.
And they used to shorten that to Jimmy Hill. Jimmy
Chin, that.
Jimmy Chin, Chinny.
I once, I started to make a list of all the variants of that at one point.
Which would be? Chinny, rack-on.
So you've got Chinny, rack-on, Jimmy Hill.
Jimmy.
But it goes beyond this. What I found out is when I spoke to people of a similar age to us from different parts of the country, they all had their own variants.
Please
which
tell
have
me.
nothing to do with Jimmy Hill whatsoever.
Go.
Ooh, fan tut.
What? Yeah? What?
Ooh, fan tut.
Who coined that?
Simon Farnaby told me that one.
Where's Farnaby from?
He's up near Newcastle way. What's that? The university town you come before Newcastle? What's it called? Durham. He's from Durham, yeah. So in Durham, fan tut. Ooh, fan tut.
Right, any more?
Yeah. Yebo.
Ebo.
Yebo.
Yebo. Right, I'm going to guess. Can I guess where they were from?
Yeah, go on.
So Ebo.
Yeah, no, Yebo.
Yebo. I'm going to go west. No? No. Producer Griff shaking his head.
Sounds like an Eastern Vowel sound, or something like that.
It was the Scouser who told me about that. Oh. Yebo.
What Scouser would that be? Would we
an
know?
Actor called Ravi Kapoor.
Right. Any other variants?
Loads, yeah.
Oh my God, it's all going off here today. We've gone from Jimmy Hill.
Tutankhamun.
Tutankhamun!
Isn't it? Yeah,
I mean, it's quite a long thing to do if someone's lying. The beard of wisdom.
Yeah, because if you think about Khamun, he's got that weird bit on the chin, hasn't he?
Yeah.
So it's clever. Ooh, Tutankhamun.
Hit me with another.
They're all said in the same way.
Yeah, of course. Ooh.
Hang on, can I remember any more? Fanta, Ebo, Tutankhamun.
I mean, this is what the podcast is all about, really.
Wasted it.
So while we're
I think those are the three main ones that I remember.
I don't think
Rack
we need.
On, obviously.
Rack On, because it's just
Rack On.
Rack On.
Yeah, Jimmy Rack On.
Always went for the chinny.
Yebo.
The chinny Rack On. But, who knows, nowadays I might even go for the Yebo. I don't think I'll go full Tutankhamun because it's just...
You can just go to Khamun.
Oh, can you? Yeah. You can shorten that.
Khamun.
There's no rules. There's no rules. There's no rules with the chinny.
It shouldn't be. Yeah.
Where was school for you while we're on the school subject? Where did you grow up?
So I grew up in North Oxfordshire. I began life in a small village called Adderbury.
I love that. No, I don't think anybody's ever said I began life. It's so beautiful.
I began life.
I began life.
I commenced the art of living in a small village called Adderbury, and then we moved to the big town when just before my sister was born.
What was the big town?
Banbury.
Oxford.
Banbury in Oxfordshire, yeah. North Oxfordshire. Most famous son from Banbury, do you know?
Oh, is it sport related?
It's not. You might get this one.
All right.
Music related.
Oh, Oxford.
I mean, to be honest, we're not proud of him.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, that could be a long list.
Era? Can you hit me with a
70s.
clue? 70s.
Yes.
Ooh.
70s, yeah.
With this 70s...
Glam.
Yeah,
70s
I think
glam,
kind of
you know,
likes
don't you?
a trip to Thailand.
Indeed he does.
Yeah, we go. We don't need to say his name on this podcast. I'm not going to... You know, it's all
Paul
about
Gad.
Yeah,
Real
let's
name,
just go
Paul
with
Gad.
Let's go with Gad.
Talking of people who change their names,
Go on.
which we kind of are, one of my favourite change names is this one. So let me get this right. Stewart Granger, the actor Stewart Granger.
Right.
You know his work, kind of early 20th century, early mid 20th century. Stewart Granger, not his real name.
Go on.
Real name, James Stewart.
Really?
Yes. So if he hadn't changed his name to Stewart Granger, James Stewart, Jimmy Stewart,
Would have
would
had
not
to
have been able to be James Stewart. Imagine
A lovely piece of trivia
a
there.
little, you know, divergent alternate reality.
James Stewart being one of my favourite actors.
One of mine as well.
Yeah.
In fact, that game that you play, or used to play, of, you know, if they were going to make a film of you, who would ideally play you in the film?
Yeah.
But who actually would they end up getting?
Yeah.
Because they couldn't afford that person. For me, it was always James Stewart if they were going to do my life story, but obviously they wouldn't be able to get, not just because he was dead, but they wouldn't be able to get James Stewart, so they'd end up with Nicholas Lyndhurst.
Not that we're slamming
I'm
Mr.
not.
Lyndhurst
No,
at
he was
all.
available.
I mean, if he's available.
He was available. Not working at the moment, I don't think. He's all right.
He doesn't need to, though, really, does
Said,
he?
yeah, I can make the dates. Yeah, make those dates work.
Maybe we should reach out to him. Get him on the podcast. It doesn't.
You should
That's the
get him
thing.
on.
Well, here's the thing that I've always found quite fascinating about Nicholas Lyndhurst.
Yeah.
Even at the height of Only Fools mania. And it
Yes.
was a big, huge show, wasn't it?
Still
And
is to a lot of people, yeah.
It still is, but, you know, that was a time when, you know, the viewing figures were huge, weren't they?
Yes, yeah.
Never did that many interviews, did he? Really?
I think you're right, yeah.
Because
Yeah.
he always struck me as someone, I don't know anything about Nicholas Lyndhurst. And then I remember hearing him, and I think it was on the radio,
Yeah.
doing a very rare interview. And he spoke so well. You know, it was
Not like
real-
Rodders.
Not like Rodders at all.
No.
I mean, he sounded like he was from upstairs rather than downstairs.
Yes.
And that shocked me.
New Peckham rather than old Peckham.
I don't think I've ever been to Peckham.
It's changed, hasn't it?
Anyway, we're not-
Gentrification.
We're not here to talk about Nicholas Lyndhurst.
No, but I mean, you're right. He's one of those people who you don't.
He's really kept
know
himself
anything
to
about.
himself,
I think
though.
he has. Yeah, he wouldn't pop up on, you know, on the interview circuit, would he? He wouldn't be seen getting thrown out of a bar at 3 a.m.
Not that we know
Is
of.
is he married? Children? We don't
I
know.
believe he is.
Yeah, but you kind of don't
Yeah,
know,
you
do you?
I don't know.
Kind of don't know.
He basically, the British De
Keeps his
Niro.
head down, does the work. Lets the work speak for itself. You know?
Tell me about your work at school, Tim Plester.
I went to quite a tough, rough secondary school, so you kind of had to.
Your
not
good group of
be-
friends.
I had a few good friends. I mean, but it was you kind of had to keep your wits about you and not be perceived to be, you know, a teacher's pet or a boffin. You know, you had to kind of
Not show any
be one. You
weakness.
had to kind of be one of the boys a little bit,
Yeah.
which is probably where that behaviour comes from, on one level. But yeah, I used to escape. My favourite lessons were drama and art, really. English language, those kind of things.
Oh. Were you doing any sort of extracurricular sort of drama or acting classes out of school, or was that catered for?
Well, to be honest, yeah. I mean, the extracurricular stuff I did is definitely the reason why I've ended up doing this thing for a living, because I did do drama at school, but what I was lucky to do as a kind of in that period of secondary school education is there was a local Amdram theatre group that my dad got me involved with. They were called the Mill Theatre Group. They were in Banbury, and they put on shows quite regularly, and I got involved with the very first production they did, which was a production of Lark Rise. Which
to Candleford?
Well, without the to Candleford.
Why?
We did to Candleford later. It's basically...
Oh, is it two separate things?
Most people who are familiar with anything to do with Lark Rise know the fairly recent, neutered BBC TV version. But prior to that, there were two phenomenally good stage productions which were done at the National Theatre. And they did Lark Rise first, and then they did Candleford later. And those plays themselves are then based on books by a writer called Flora Thompson.
Yeah, I knew your books.
So what's interesting about all that and how it connects to me is that Flora Thompson wrote about Lark Rise, which is where she grew up, but that's the fictional name that she gave to the little hamlet, which is actually called Juniper Hill. And Juniper Hill, the real place where Flora Thompson grew up, is about 10 miles from Adderbury, where I grew up.
Right.
So there was this connection there with this material that was written about a part of the country that my family was from. And so we went to see it when it was on at the National Theatre. They did this promenade performance, it was, and it had live folk music in it. And it's the reason why I'm an actor. I went to see it as a kid. I sat on my dad's shoulders. And
how old are you?
It was done in 1978, so I must have been 7 or 8.
Wow.
And, I'd never seen anything like it before or since, to be honest. It was just such a thrilling thing to be witness to. The action was going on around you. The music was kicking in. It was just... It changed my life, really did, seeing that show. And then the Mill Drama Group, then did the first ever amateur production of Lark Rise.
The first one?
The first ever Amdram. So not only, but 3 years after it had been on at the National, wow. They got the rights to do it in the town hall in Banbury.
And it was your dad that got you involved in it?
Yeah, well, they needed a young boy, one of the parts. Basically, the part which is based on Flora Thompson's actual younger brother, who ultimately ended up going to the First World War and not coming back. Edmund, his name is Edmund Timms, is the character's name. And they needed someone to play Edmund Timms. And my dad said, well, I've got a young boy, he quite likes acting, messing about.
And was your dad in the drama group?
So yeah, my dad was in the drama group as well.
Right.
So my dad was into Amdram. And
your mum? Was your mum into it?
Mum wasn't, no. It was very much something that my dad did. I got involved in this production of Lark Rise with the local theatre group, which my nan was also in.
Really?
My nan played one of the old ladies. So it's been
passed down?
Yeah, and I think my uncle was in the band, I think, because we did the live band thing as well. And it was about folk roots and agrarian past, and there was it was around the same time that Morris dancing had been revived in my village, and all this connects to kind of stuff I've ended up doing later in my life. But so a lot of the Morris men were in the play as well, and it was just the combination of having seen the play and then being involved with this Amdram version of it a few years later just kind of cemented everything for me in terms of this is
what you want to be.
This is what I want to do. I mean, I don't know if there's any way I can ever do it, but it definitely it fueled everything in me that this is where I want to put my energies into. And then the Mill Drama Group then carried on doing stuff after that, and they would always find a part for me.
So you carried on doing it?
Yeah, and I think what was really interesting about that for me as a young boy or teenager is that yes, I would do my stuff at at school with my peers, my contemporaries, but then I would go off and do these shows with grown-ups. So that was a really interesting experience for me, to be acting with people who were, not my age.
Doing those two things, did they work in tandem with each other, or did you feel that the stuff you were doing in school didn't really speak to you, but the stuff you were doing with the adults outside of school, you were getting more from, you were learning more from? Or?
I think I did feel I was getting more from working with the adults. Partly because they were doing, we did The Crucible. It was one of the plays I remember doing. I played the jailer in that. I must have been 14, 15.
Wow. Were you touching on plays sort of that calibre at school, or was it a bit more pedestrian?
My memory of stuff we did at school has kind of been shot away. All I can remember doing is Midsummer Night's Dream and playing Bottom, which I quite enjoyed doing. But it was one of those things which I don't think's probably changed, is that there was actually, my memory is there was me and one other guy doing drama.
The rest were girls.
And the rest were girls. Yeah. So we did Midsummer Night's Dream, and all the mechanicals were girls. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but it was a kind of odd thing. Whereas, when I was doing stuff with the Amdram group, men were playing the male parts, women were playing the female parts, and 70-year-old people were playing the 70-year-old parts, and 15-year-old boys were playing the 15-year-old parts. It felt a bit more
I think that's
real.
Kind of not unheard of, but certainly before I got asked to leave amateur drama group,
you were kicked out.
So that's another story. There was, 60-year-old guys playing a role for a 20-year-old, and a 15-year-old girl playing the part of a 25-year-old, and looking at those two together as a couple is 7 shades of wrong. I had real problems with that. And there always seemed to be a hierarchy. Well, they've been doing this amateur drama, they've been here since blah 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 blah, and they in the daytime they're the bank manager of therefore they come here and they take this part and blah blah blah. So that's great that didn't happen with yours.
Well, I think that they were kind of quite unique, this Amdram company, because there was another company in the town called the Banbury Cross Players.
Was it?
They were
West Side Story.
Pretty much, yeah. Never the twain shall meet. And they were a bit more what you'd expect from an Amdram.
So they were churning out the classics.
Yeah, that's what they were doing. And we when the people that were involved with the Mill Drama Group, where, as I said, they were Morris dancers. They were there because their mates were there and they wanted to have a beer. And we've got to learn some lines now and do this. And they were quite an anarchic bunch. Is my fond memory of them. And so it wasn't like that at all. And I just that really had a really important impact on me as in those formative years. And I think it also kind of carries on, that kind of thinking carries on over into when you go to, or my experience, when you go to drama school and you spend a lot of time maybe playing roles that are outside of your playing age, because it's about but it's all about acting, isn't it? You've got to act, so you might have to play a 50-year-old man, so the white boot polish comes out and you do that, and then but of course the minute you leave drama school you realise there are 50-year-old actors who are going to play those parts. So what you need to be good at playing is a 22-year-old. So what was I doing all those other parts that seems kind of quite wasted in a way, that I spent all that time trying to stretch myself. And maybe it isn't. Maybe I'm wrong, and actually that helps you play yourself, because essentially that's what you end up being asked to do, to play kind of variations of yourself, basically. And that seems to me almost the trick of it. And probably why acting on one level is so difficult is because ultimately it's actually really easy. Just be yourself, Be a human being. You know how to do that. What are you doing? Why are you putting all this extra stuff on it? Just sit and talk to somebody. Yes, there's scripted lines and scripted emotions that you're meant to hit, but essentially this is stuff that we all do every day.
Yeah.
In terms of interacting or not interacting with other human beings.
Well, it's funny because
So
when I...
the closer you are playing yourself, what I guess I'm saying is it's easier to kind of just try and be you or a version of you, and that I think helps you to maybe be more truthful in your performance.
Do you think you were learning, or certainly stuff maybe subliminally started to seep into you when you were at the... Was it Millbank? Sorry.
The drama group. They're called the Mill Drama Group.
Mill Drama. I don't know where I got Millbank from, sorry. The Mill Drama Group. Do you think you were already starting your training there?
Yeah, I do, because it wasn't school. It didn't feel like.
And obviously, you probably weren't treated like a child there, were you?
Not really. No. I was treated like one of the gang, and I was in I was in all the shows they did for the first 5 or 6 years. As I say, they would always find a part for me, even if there wasn't an obvious one for me. They might even invent one. They might even write one for me, even if there wasn't one. We've got to give Tim something to do in this.
Was your dad still doing it all these years as well?
Yeah, my dad stayed in it all those years.
Is he still going this?
No,
What happened?
it stopped a number of years ago. They stopped doing stuff.
Why?
I don't really know. It just
Was there no one there to carry?
I think
torch?
it just kind of they just kind of ran out of steam. I mean, my memory of it is there's a lovely little addendum to this story, and so I am doing all of this stuff with the Mill Drama Group while I'm at secondary school. Then I go off and do my training at Dartington College of Arts is where I went.
We'll come back to.
And I did 4 years there, and then I came back from having done my training, and I lived with my parents for a while before I moved to London. And in that time, the Mill Drama Group was still going, and I did a show with them.
Oh, did you?
When I came back, which my dad directed, and it was called The Clink, and it was by a writer called Stephen Jeffries. And I discovered this play because during my training at Dartington, we had a year, our third year, where they kicked you out of college basically, and you had to go out into the real world and get work experience, which you were then meant to bring back with you for your final year. And I went and worked with the new writing theatre company Payne's Plough. And Stephen Jeffries had written 1 or 2 plays for them, I think. And I may be right in saying that when Payne's Plough did The Clink, Andy Serkis was in the cast.
Really?
Which is where I first came across the name Andy Serkis. I didn't see the show, but I saw all the pictures and the reviews. I may be wrong about that. He was in one of their shows around that time, and it may have been The Clink. So I basically had this script, which I took back to my dad and gave it to him, and he loved it. And so, when I came back from college, we did a version of The Clink, and I was in it. It was the lead part I did. And I remember what I remember most about it is, I guess what I'd learnt at college was I scared basically everybody else in the cast because I would pause sometimes before saying my lines, and there was this look in their eyes whenever I did it of, is it me?
Fear.
Oh, no, it was more that kind of, is it me? Is it my line? Is it my line? And then I would start again and go, no, it's not me, I didn't think it was me. You can see it in their eyes. Because that on one level is my memory of Amdram. It's like you talk very quickly until you've said all your lines and then you stop. Now it must be my turn and I say my lines and I'll keep going until I stop, and then it must be you when I stop. And so when I started messing around with that and actually doing pause for effect, there was a certain fear in the eyes, but I don't know how much longer the theatre company carried on after that, but they were still going when I came back from
It sounded like a good place to grow.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was politics involved. I think they lost their rehearsal space, I think, is my memory of it. And all
probably
got
rates as well.
I think all of that, yeah. I think it just wasn't...
no one was getting paid to do that.
No, I think everyone was obviously getting older.
And I suppose
people
if
started moving away.
if you
know.
don't have a new generation coming in,
There definitely wasn't a new generation coming in, so I think, mate, it just kind of ran its natural course, I think. But it was a really, for a period there, it was a really kind of wonderful thing to be.
Does your dad still do it, or does he still find somewhere else? Or?
No, Dad hasn't done it since they stopped. He didn't carry on with it after the.
Do you think he misses it? Some sort of
I
creative output.
I think he did. He went and played music for a while, which helped. Because my dad's kind of a good amateur drummer, percussionist. He used to play in a blues band before he met my mum.
Did he?
I mean, amateur local group. So he did that for a while, which I know he really enjoyed. But he doesn't do anything like that anymore now. So I'm sure he does miss it on one level, but he probably quite enjoys it.
What does he do creatively then? Because he sounds like someone that needs to unleash.
Yeah, I think he's older now, and he probably has the yearning, but maybe the body isn't willing anymore. I don't know. He spends a lot of time with his grandchildren, and enjoys that, I think. And I guess kind of vicariously lives a little bit through what I might be doing.
Yeah.
And that's nice, because I owe him a lot, really, for taking me to see that play.
I suppose if you hadn't
for getting me involved with that Drum company, for being and my mum comes into it. When I tell them I want to go and do this, they're fully supportive. They never tried to dissuade me from doing it. And they were really helpful when I was at university, and didn't have a lot of money and needed food parcels. In fact, not only that, but the first few years I lived in London and was signing on, my dad would come up every 3 or 4 weeks with a food parcel for me to keep me going. So yeah, they were always really supportive of the following the dream.
Yeah.
And, that means that helped a lot. It means a lot.
It does mean the world. It means everything to know you're supported, doesn't it? Instead of going, you know what, I appreciate that it's a nice little dream you've got. Maybe let's have a backup. Let's have a
because you never know.
You never know, and it'd be. I'd sleep in my bed a bit more comfortable if you got a degree in this, and then
let's just because
So
you never know.
When you left school, how were the GCSEs?
They were all right.
Yeah?
Yeah, I went, I did A-levels. Well, I'm old enough, I did O-levels.
Oh, you did?
I was
so you did CSEs and O-levels?
I was the last year of the O-levels. And then I did 3 A-levels. This is a sign of going back to the school that I was at. You couldn't do A-levels at the secondary school I went to. You had to go to the bigger school, Banbury School. You had to go to do your A-levels, and there was only me and I think 6 other people from my secondary school. Well, from my secondary school, who then went and did A-levels at Banbury School, and I did English literature, theatre studies, and art. And I gave art up because it was just with that and theatre, there was just too much extra curricula. I had to make a decision about which one I wanted to really do, and it was never really an option to do art. I loved it. I particularly loved comic books. Really, I think my other alternate career at one point was I wanted to be a comic book artist.
Do you still tinker with that? Are you still?
Not really. I'll do a little doodle on things and people go, "Oh, that's good," but nothing beyond that. I mainly just do little doodly self-portraits of myself. But I used to draw comic strips. They're somewhere in a box. Full issues. Basically copying Marvel Comics stuff, but fully scripted with little. I used to ink it. I used to little writing a drawing board, and I would sit and I research what kind of pens they used, and I drew it all up like I knew you were supposed to, and I scripted it. And
would you colour it as well?
Yeah, up to a point, until I kind of got bored with the colouring, because it was stopping me carrying on doing the drawing, because it was taking too long to colour them as well. Right. So if you look at them back, that's like the first 2 pages might be coloured, and then it's just black and white.
Is that a different skill altogether, though, the colouring?
I mean, yeah. I mean, if you look at a comic book credits, yeah, somebody does the lettering, somebody does the.
Well, you've got to pick those out and get those framed and put them up.
I don't know if I'm not sure quite how good they are, to be honest.
But still, that's a little piece.
My parents have got something still on their wall in the family home that I did for A-level. Not A-level, it must have been O-level. Or maybe it was one of my A-level pieces before I quit. They've still got on the wall somewhere else. I look at that, and every time I see it, I ask them politely to
take it down.
Or I basically say, it'd be fine. You could take that down. I wouldn't be offended.
No, it's always been there. That's where it'll stay. So what was the college? Was it did you say Dartington?
Dartington College of Arts, which was in the past tense, because it doesn't exist anymore. It was in Totnes, near Totnes in Devon.
And what were you doing there?
So it was a 4-year BA in theatre studies, and I tried to get into more traditional drama schools. I went to Bristol and didn't get in. I auditioned for Guildford and didn't get in. Went up to Manchester. Didn't get in. Manchester Poly, yeah. Mainly because there was a period in my life when I was a big Rick Mail and Aid Edmondson fan, and I knew they'd gone there, so I chose that, but I didn't get in. The only places I got into was Crewe and Alsager. Again, that was a theatre studies course, I think, rather than a straight acting course, and then this course at Dartington, which again changed my life, really. I think those 4 years I spent at Dartington.
Were you not disheartened about the drama school stuff? Probably you were a bit.
I mean, I was, yeah.
But you weren't going to let that dissuade you?
I just kind of had to rethink, and I didn't go to drama schools. I looked at doing it as degree courses instead, and I had a year off, and I didn't go travelling around the world.
What did you do?
I worked in Tesco's.
To save up?
Just to kind of pay my way, really. I don't remember saving much, but I worked as on the wine and spirits stock control supervisor. I had to start work at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Which I never got used to that. It used to hurt every single day getting up at that time.
Are you a morning person though?
Yeah, I am. But not. I mean, that was
that's ridiculous.
That still hurts, even if still want to have to get up that time to go working now. It still hurts a bit, although it's slightly different now because there's usually a nice warm car waiting for you outside.
And certainly an incentive.
Cook breakfast when you get to the other end, that kind of thing.
But it's not nice when a child wakes you up at 3:30 in the morning.
That's different again, of course. But yeah, I did that. I had a year off, and it kind of resolved, galvanised my desire even more that I wanted to do.
Did you never think about, in that year off, re-auditioning?
I don't think I realised it was even a possibility. I just thought, okay, they don't want me. I'll kind of have a rethink on how else can I approach it. And I did carried on doing bits of theatre while I was in that year off. Basically, when I did my A-levels, there was another kind of important part of my development in that, again, aside from my actual coursework, there was a bit of a drama group that you could go to. Basically, you were given the choice between you had to do something on a certain afternoon, and you could either do some form of PE, or there was a drama option. And not that I don't enjoy sports, but I decided to do the drama option. And we ended up creating our own show, which I ended up writing in the end, because I've always enjoyed writing as well, and still I mean, there's a period of my career when I wanted to be actually a writer and not an actor at all. And we wrote this play, kids' play.
How many people were in the group?
I think there are about 12 or 14 people in that group. And there's two things that are really important about that group. One of them is that I meet my first ever proper girlfriend in that group.
Right.
You know what I mean by proper girlfriend?
I know what you mean, but maybe the listeners might not know.
Well, you know, it was my first time.
I'm with you.
And also
the
drama teacher in with that group. So she didn't teach me A-level drama, but she was teaching that little, you know, extracurricular thing. She had been to Dartington College of Arts.
Right.
So she was the first person who told me about this place. So that stuck in my head somewhere when I came to kind of re-audition or rethink about where I could go instead. And we ended up doing... So we did this children's play, which was about a flower-powered superhero called Pansy Man.
Set in the 70s.
Who I had created. No, it was set in the modern day.
Oh, was it?
But he was a superhero for the modern age. He didn't really actually have any powers. Well, he had the proportionate strength of a flower, basically, which was nothing. But he cared about the environment and green issues and environment.
He wanted peace.
He wanted peace in our time. And he ended up then having 4 sequels.
Really?
Yes. There were 5. I think there were 5 Pansy Man plays that I ended up writing in the end, and they became a bit of a cult hit in Banbury. Yes. And so when I was back when I hadn't got into drama college, and I was working in Tesco's, we did another one of these Pansy Man plays that I wrote, and I was Pansy Man, and I directed it as well. It's kind of, you know. So I kept my oar in, if you like, during that year. And in fact, I used to remember writing this. I wrote most of the script when I was in Tesco's in the morning, checking stock, and I would have a little bit of cardboard. And if ideas came to me, I would just write it down while I was tying up how many bottles of that we had. I might write a line down on a bit of cardboard, and slowly that kind of assembled into a script.
You end up walking home with just like a massive cardboard book full of notes.
Essentially, it was that, yeah. It slowly, I then transcribed it all out, and it kind of loosely fitted together into some kind of ramshackle script. But that's it. It's the kind of the writing aspect of that is really important as well. I think in my development that I wanted to. Because I'd done that at primary school as well. I wrote my first play.
Did you?
Yes, it was an adaptation of The Hound of the Baskervilles, which I wrote, and I'm not sure if I even credited Conan Doyle. It was all my idea, and I, you know, I was Sherlock Holmes, and I directed it as well, and you know the teachers let me do it. We did one performance.
A lot of control here.
Yeah, well, then that spins off as well into, after that, that evolves into a series of shows that I used to do on Friday afternoons in primary school, which we would just make up in the afternoon and then perform. And that was a character then called Stewart Plester, who was based on Sherlock Holmes. So that was a kind of detective thing, which I have no memory of what we used to do. We just used to mess around for 10 minutes. We would basically roughly outline the script. I guess very similar to how Larry David does Curb Your Enthusiasm. I would give people certain things that they were going to do at a certain point, and this is your motive, and then we'll improvise it. And when the time comes, and there'll be, you know, it'll work, it'll be fine. Everyone will love it. But I did all that kind of writing comes not just from a need to or a desire to want to be a writer. It was about trying to create roles for myself at an early age. Pansy Man being kind of the
big hitter.
The big hitter, yeah. And Pansy Man, I then took off to holiday camps around the country, because
during that year out.
No, so my other thinking is, when I was trying to work out how do I get to do this thing called acting, that, you know, nobody in my family is connected to it. I've never met a real actor. I met John Pertwee once. He came to open the Mill Drama Group's rehearsal space.
Did he?
Yeah. So I did meet John Pertwee, but I didn't know actors. I didn't know how it worked, how you got to be it. So I would look at people, you know, who I could see in the public eye and work out what they'd done. So that, you know, Rick and Aid, I found out they went to Manchester. And then I also found out, you know, some people back then, it was all about the equity card back then, is what, from what I could perceive. You needed this thing called the equity card. So how did you get it?
Yeah.
And, you know, my research uncovered that you could get it by working on a holiday camp. So that's something else I did. I did 3 years, 3 summers working on holiday camps.
Is this after Dartington?
One of them is the year. It's the year I don't get in, and one of them was actually my first year at Dartington. I did my first year at Dartington and then went off that summer and did my last year as a bluecoat for Warner Holidays, who don't exist anymore. They merged into Haven Holidays. I think Haven still exists. But yeah, I worked as a children's entertainer, and Pansy Man came with me, so I would do Pansy Man at these holiday camps.
Do you start at Bluecoat, or do you?
You start
to a blue coat?
No, you start as a blue coat. There's only one coat.
Oh, isn't there?
It's not like Star Trek. We have different. It's just you just get the blue coat with red pinstripes.
What's Butlins?
They're red. But here you go. Here's something that I found when I was working on holiday camps. They were all owned by the same people.
What, like Pontins, Butlins?
It's all the same. Yeah. There's no rivalry whatsoever. Butlins own, or used to own, Pontins and Warners and Haven, I think. It was all some weird monopoly, a bit like, you know, when McDonald's owned Pret a Manger, you know, it's that kind of...
What?
Yeah. Mars own, I don't know, Snickers or whatever it is, you know, these multinationals all own these other smaller companies and kind of keep them going as a kind of ruse that there might be some competition out there, but it isn't. It all goes back into the same
pocket.
Picture House Cinemas and what's the other one? They were owned by, what's the one down
View.
at Haymarket? No, it's not View. It's Cine
Cineworld.
Yeah, they own Picture House, for instance.
Do they?
Yeah. It's just lies everywhere you look, Craig. It's just people lying to you.
Well,
deceit.
luckily, not on this podcast.
It's just a world of deceit out there.
So where are we now? Where are we? In fact, do you know what I do want to say? Do you remember when I texted you maybe a couple of years ago? I
always remember your text, Craig.
I said, I'm in Bath and I'm slightly concerned that there's Morris men and ladies. Morris ladies? Or just Morris men?
Let's just say Morris dancers.
Morris dancers.
Yeah, it can be either.
White men and women.
Yes.
And they'd covered themselves in all black face.
Yes.
And I found it slightly unnerving. And I didn't understand it. And I didn't like it. So who would know?
You didn't understand the cultural...
I didn't understand it at all,
reference point or the background as to why this would happen.
I found it quite uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So who do I text who knows something about this? I texted you.
Yeah.
And for the life of me, I can't remember the answer of
How
why they actually do that.
Well,
that black face.
What you've encountered there, Craig, is the border Morris tradition, which is different from Cotswold Morris, which is what we dance in Adderbury. But on the borders, the Welsh-English borders, their tradition is slightly different, and they do disguise their faces. That's what it's called. It's called disguising. And it goes back to a time when, I mean, Morris dancing at one point is basically a form of begging. You dance outside a pub to get free ale and maybe some food from the people who own the pub, and that's why you do it. And so
that's how it started.
It's kind of what it was a group of mates who after work would, you know, get their gear on and go and have a dance and hope they might get a free meal and a drink out of it.
And the bells and all that, is that just to attract attention? Or does
Well,
that
no, the
come
bells are
from-
there to ward off evil spirits,
All right, we're going into a different realm.
Craig, as are the knots in the handkerchiefs.
Right.
Because if you've got an evil spirit around, if you have a handkerchief with a knot in, it's
Yeah.
going to confuse that evil spirit, because the evil spirit will think, why, hang on, what's this? And will try to untie the knot in the handkerchief, and by that point you can get away from the evil spirit, although it will hear where you've gone because you've got the bells on. But yeah, so you basically disguised your face because you didn't want your boss to know you were begging outside the pub last night.
I wonder
Essentially.
why that, though, if there's not another way.
It's just because it's the quickest way of doing it. If you think about it, what's on the floor here is mud. Quickly
Whack
put
it
it on
all
my
over.
face. There you go. That'll do it.
Okay.
And also, it's a kind of it's to kind of remove the individuality from the thing. You're meant to be a group. You dance in unison, and you don't want one person standing out. So if you all look the same, then there's that. But I mean, it varies where you go. If you go up north, if you go up to Bacup in Lancashire,
It is Lancashire.
they do a form of Morris dancing there, which is only done there, and it's called the Bacup nutting dance.
Or Backup.
Or Backup, yeah. I've never seen it live, but that they do Black the Faces there, and they do little dance moves which kind of are them listening as if they're down the mine.
Right. For
And they
listeners,
have-
Tim is covering
Cupping
his
one
left
ear
and
and then
right
t'other.
ear. There's cuppage.
They have coconuts. They're called the coconut.
On their knees.
Yeah, on the knees, and it's a lot of
Now-
these things are kind of lost in the midst of time. And I'm not also for a second denying that somewhere in the midst of time, these people encountered the first person they'd ever seen from the African continent and were somehow kind of influenced and inspired by it to, adopt some kind of, look that somehow mimicked it, and it's kind of continued for decades, centuries.
People listening might go, why have they just started talking about
Yeah,
Morris
I mean,
dancing?
it's just
Because
we've
jumped ahead.
it's just normal for me. I mean, it's
Because is it how many years ago? 2-3 years ago?
so in 2011, so it's quite a while ago now.
Is this when you started production? Or you started?
In 2011 we premiered
Wow, God, I didn't know it was that long ago.
a documentary film called Way of the Morris, which we took to South by Southwest in almost this time exactly, 2011, because South by Southwest is just coming up again. But it was 3 years before that we started making it.
And why did? Because we will go back to it, but apart from your acting,
Yes.
you started out doing short films. You started writing and being in short films, not necessarily directing the short films, though.
No,
you have done.
I mean, all this connects in that. So I was writing when I was at primary school, at secondary school. I was doing Sherbet Plester and then Pansy Man, and then when I went to Dartington, I would write stuff there as well. I had a group of mates, and we did kind of comedy sketches. We wanted to be the new Mary Whitehouse experience with the current ones at that time. Monty Python. We wanted to do that, so I would write stuff there as well. And it was all a way, essentially, as I said, writing parts for myself to do. But to the extent that when I left Dartington, I didn't want to be an actor. I actually wanted to be a writer. Because I didn't, everything anyone will ever tell you about it, I didn't want to come to London and sit waiting for a telephone to ring to be offered work. I just thought it would destroy me. I couldn't do it. So I wanted to feel that what I was trying to do, I had some kind of control over. And so I decided I wanted to be a writer. Also, while I was at Dartington, I wrote a play which won the National Student Playwright of the Year award. in 1993, 94. So that kind of gave me some
Skipped
confidence.
over that, didn't you?
Kind of, hang on, maybe I'm all right at writing, and maybe I'll stick to that.
That's got to fill you with confidence.
It did, and it also there was a prize money which paid off my student debt as well.
Happy days.
So thank you for that. Questers Theatre in Ealing. So yeah, when I left Dartington, I moved to London and I set up a theatre company with two mates from Dartington, and I said I wasn't going to act, but I was going to write and produce and run the theatre company. And so that's what I did initially. I wasn't acting at all, and I was right. I wrote 2 more plays. I went and did. In fact, I went back to university and did an MA in playwriting.
Did you?
Yeah, Birmingham University.
I don't think I knew that.
Yeah, I went and did that because that's what I thought I wanted to do. And there was a period of my life when I knew the literary managers at the Court and the Bush and all these people, and I was kind of in and around that. And I was friends with Sarah Kane, who was the biggest young writer who'd come along in a generation.
Yeah.
And she was a friend and a contemporary, and I went back to Payne's Plough at one point, and Sarah ran a writers group there, and I was part of that writers group. And I wrote a play which Mark Ravenhill directed a rehearsed reading of. So there was a kind of a period of my life when I was kind of doing all right in terms of maybe being, a playwright. But I kind of got sucked back into acting again.
How? If things were going,
they
on
were going to a
trajectory.
certain degree, and I was running the theatre company, and we were putting the plays on, but I wasn't quite ever getting in the door at places like the Court and the Bush, and they knew who I was, but they weren't giving me the commission or the slot.
Sorry, we're
Should we wait for
interrupted
that?
by this awful car alarm.
Let's go.
And as if by magic, thank you.
Thank you for that.
So were you feeling unfulfilled with the writing then if you weren't getting to the places where you wanted to put your productions on?
A little bit. And a friend of mine, well, it's all connected actually. So a friend of mine called Rob Curry was doing a play. I wasn't a friend at the time, but I knew of him, and he offered me a part in a new play that he'd done. And I just thought, yeah, come on. I might go and do this. It might be quite fun to do some acting again.
And where was that?
It was on at the Oval House Theatre on the Fringe. And I just loved it. I realised that I'd really missed it. And I also realised that actually having been away from it for a few years, I was quite fresh with it as well. I wasn't precious about it. Some of the other people in the cast had been trying to kind of chip away at the system in the years I hadn't been, and it kind of showed in a slight anxiety in their performances, and I kind of came in and was I just felt like I'd really benefited from not being put through the London agony of it all. And so there's a lot of years, obviously, that are passing through all of this talk, and theatre kind of slowly disappears from what I want to do, but the writing is still there, and so I start writing short films initially. As the acting career begins to kind of take off a little bit, I then use that as a way of getting short films made, and using actors that I've met on set as actors to be in the shorts.
Sorry to interrupt, but was this going back to what you initially used to do, which is write stuff for yourself? Or was this just a need for your creativity, just sort of a pathway to do that?
It was both. So the first short that I wrote was called Ant Muzak, which is a comedy about what might happen if Adam and the Ants turned up at a supermarket at 3:45 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. And I did write that with an intention of being in it, and I was in that one. I was one of the ants.
You were.
But then, and the two subsequent films that I made with that same director, Ben Gregor, I was in, but kind of not in a I was in a very peripheral role. So we did one about Blake's 7 as well, and I was one of the stormtroopers in that, so you didn't see my face. And
Is that the one on the night bus?
Blake 7 is in a motorway service station. Blake's Junction 7, it's called.
That's right. Oh no, what's the one on the night bus?
No, the night bus is then the third part of the trilogy called World of Wrestling.
That's the wrestling
and
one. Right?
I'm very briefly in that one as well. But no, I felt a bit uncomfortable about only writing the things for me to be in, so I was quite happy to just write and then step back. So we made 3 shorts together, me and
Why do you think you
Ben.
felt uncomfortable at that point? Because you never used to.
I don't know. I think maybe I also thought I had more. Probably I could learn more from not being in it, and just kind of step back and be. I'd always, the plays that I'd written as well when I'd run the theatre company, I wasn't in, and I'd enjoyed that. And what had always worried me about writing for film was, the fact that the writer is not God when it comes to TV and film. And I'd been used to being able to be sat in rehearsals when we'd done plays and have a good relationship with the director and with the actors as well. And what I had with Ben, who directed those 3 shorts, was a good enough relationship for Ben to have me around. I wasn't not allowed on set. And so I was lucky in that respect that I could kind of enjoy, because I never really enjoyed the process of sitting in a room on my own and writing. What I always enjoyed was getting on set or getting in a rehearsal space and seeing the words come alive and being there as some kind of, font of a certain amount of knowledge. I find it quite odd now as a director that sometimes, where's the writer? I might have a question about, this line here, what was the, what might be the intention there?
Yeah.
The writers are never, very, very rarely there. So, I guess some writers are maybe difficult to deal with, and maybe that's why somewhere along the line somebody decided let's not have any writers on a film set. But my experience is they're not.
I always liked the writer. I was in ADR for a film the other week, and we were having trouble with it. The director wanted to add a line where my head was at the back of shot.
Yeah, one of those. Yeah.
And he kept coming up with ideas, and I went, I don't know if that's right. And I pitched something in, and he went, no, I don't think it's right. I went, no, that's not right. And he went, right, I'll
call the
ring
actual writer.
The writer.
Yeah.
And she immediately picked up and said one thing, and we both went, yes, that's it.
That's it, because they're writers.
They're writers.
Yeah.
It's like...
And you wrote this thing, it came out of your head.
Everybody's got, there's a department.
Yeah.
There's the lighting department.
Yeah.
There's the writing department. There's the catering department. There's the acting department. We're all departments that come together and create a thing. So, we're all on the same level.
We should be all trying to, with the same goal, the same intention, to make the best thing that we possibly
exactly
can. So, that would always put me off the idea of wanting to work in film and TV. But I did have a good relationship with Ben on those shorts. But then what happens there is Ben ends up basically, because of the way the industry works, Ben ends up getting all the credit for those 3 shorts. And Ben ultimately goes off and continues to have a very successful career as a director. But I kind of felt that my career had gone nowhere off the back of writing and producing those 3 shorts.
That's so funny, because they were, they were critically acclaimed.
Yeah, well,
and they did win awards, didn't they?
Yeah, and it came out on DVD, which the short films,
you've got people
they don't come out
Mackenzie
on DVD.
Crook in there, and you had Johnny Vegas, you had
Martin Freeman,
good,
good people. Yeah, which is why somebody in their wisdom wanted to put it out on DVD, because they knew there was good people involved and it would shift, a certain amount of units. But it didn't do anything for my career as a writer.
How did you feel about that?
I felt devastated by it. It broke me for a while, and
Did you feel it was time wasted? Or did you feel...
I didn't. I felt cheated. I felt cheated by the system. I felt I'd been done, I'd been done over, basically. And I had meetings, and did a bit of development work with Talkback and with the BBC, but it didn't go anywhere. And I was left kind of feeling, licking my wounds really, and thinking, I got shafted there.
Did it put you off writing anything else?
Well, no. I mean, what I then went and did, which is interesting in terms of talking to you, is that I decided that I wanted to write something else, but write something quite different from those 3 shorts, because I didn't think on one level they were representative of really what my writing was. They were a specific strand of what I could do, but I didn't just want to do comedy. And so I wrote this other short film called English Language with English subtitles, which I decided I would direct as well, because if that's the way I have to play the game, I didn't want to be a director, but I thought, okay, if that's the system is basically telling me you've got to direct this as well, otherwise you'll get ignored. So I wrote that to direct it, and also by this time I was also thinking, well, okay, let's stop being this guy who's trying to be nice to everyone else. Be in the thing as well. Tim, write something for you to be in. Again, go back to that method and direct it as well, and do everything. Just it be your thing. It be your thing, and you do whatever you want with it, and get good people involved. So get Craig Parkinson in one of the parts. And so that's what I did then, and that was the first time I tried to direct something. And then that did really well around the film festival circuit. That played at over 40 film festivals worldwide, a lot of them in America, and I went to a few film festivals around that time and had a great time and felt really reinvigorated really by the whole thing. And I just felt, okay, you just got to play the game, I guess, Tim, and but yes, so from that I've ended up continuing to work in film, but have moved over into making documentaries. Yeah, and the first of them being that was a long way of coming back to talking about Morris dancing.
Which is, I do want to get onto the bridge between film and going into documentary. Yeah, but I would want to go back to the acting for a minute, because you always strike me as someone who doesn't rest on the laurels and doesn't sit around, indeed waiting for that phone call. If the acting work isn't coming, you are constantly being creative, doing something else.
It's the only thing that's kept me sane in the however many years it is since I've been doing it. 18 years, I think I've been doing it. So I will always have a project that I'm working on. Always have done.
Because there's a need, you have to do it.
But also to the extent that it gives me, a reason to get... I mean, it's more complicated now because, as again we've touched on earlier, I have a daughter now, so there's other reasons for getting up in the morning, or, somebody makes you get up in the morning for a start. But before that, I felt I needed to have a reason for getting up in the morning. More than anything else, and also a desire and a passion to want to make things. But it was almost to the extent that, if I would get a call from my agent with an offer of work, it would be like, oh, really? When do they want to do it? Next Wednesday. That's a bit inconvenient because I was going to do that. And so it's actually getting acting work. I'd created in my head this thing that it was kind of almost, an inconvenience, rather than being, oh my God, please, thank you so much. Let me get down on my knees and worship at the altar, and I think, I do think that's really helped keep me sane, and keep me sane in the periods, and sometimes long periods, when I've had no acting work coming in. I've always had something else that I'm working on, and the two things have been very helpful as well, that I could get people like Martin Freeman Mackenzie to be in my short because I'd worked with them as actors, or I knew people who'd worked with them as actors. So it's been beneficial in that respect as well. I've tried to milk that as much as I can whenever I've needed to.
But it is very healthy, going back to what we said earlier about, a parent wanting something to fall back on. In a way, you've kind of created that for yourself with the writing, because if the dark periods of having no acting work, you've had a creative outlet by creating other work.
Yes, and also what it's ended up being for me is because I don't make any money from my films. They are genuinely my art, if you like. You know, and it's a dirty word in this country to call yourself an artist.
I don't think it is. We've had many people on this very podcast who have been proud to say that they are, and I think that's a healthy thing.
Yeah. Well, I'm proud, and that comes partly from going to Dartington as well. That was about being they train you to be an artist, not just a cog in the wheel. They train you to be. They would say they train you to be a maker of theatre. So you did a bit of everything. And you could muck in and get your hands dirty and put a show on. So when it comes to doing writing or directing, I don't do it as, not that anyone's banging on my door offering me it, but I don't do it as a director for hire. It's something that I am generating, something that I want to do, something that I have editorial control over. And I've been lucky enough that, the acting is the day job, which pays the bills. And when I write or direct, that's the passion. And sometimes, I get to do acting jobs that I'm passionate about as well, but not always. Sometimes, to be crude, it's, that'll pay the bills for a couple of months.
But isn't it interesting that on one hand with the acting, there's, I don't want to say zero control, but a very small percentage of control, whereas on the other end of the spectrum, what you're doing, you're gaining complete control over what you do.
Yes, I guess it somehow helps balance the two things out, and actually also helps me, as an actor, understand much more. Not that I don't think other actors don't understand, but when you see something and you're like, well, hang on, why has my scene been cut, or why has it been shredded down to that tiny bit when I know we shot much more? It's like, well, I understand, because that's what happens when you edit, when you put the thing together that might not have worked, or that was,
I think sometimes even as an actor, you've just got to leave it there and go. I always think, well, my stuff might not even make the final cut, and I've
learned not to tell people things that I've been in until I've actually seen it and made sure that I am in it.
Because do you watch stuff on a completely other tangent?
Yeah, I do. I do.
Do you feel all right with doing that?
I quite enjoy it, actually. Quite enjoy watching
stuff.
Why
do you enjoy it? Do you know, my wife says watching herself on screen is like watching herself be sick.
It's really funny, because I know a lot of people who talk like that, and I know you and Susan are in that camp.
I'm not as strong as that, but I do find it very, very difficult to even in an ADR session.
I think for me, Craig, it goes actually back to what we kind of talked about right from the start. I wanted to be an actor. I think that most people. I was a show-off. I wanted to be the centre of the attention. That's why I was an actor as a kid. That's why I did it. No other reason. I wasn't interested in the craft of it or the truth of the emotion. I was a little show-off, and there's still a part of me which is that kid. So, yeah, I do quite like watching it sometimes. If I was funny in a scene, I'm like, yeah.
Which you are a lot.
I enjoyed that.
Unless you're being
I stole that scene.
People.
Well, that was a good little bit there. That was a nice little bit of work I did. So, I know it's not kind of cool to say that, but I think that's, for me, that's the truth of the matter.
It's not about being cool. It's about just being honest. I think that's really lovely of you and honest of you to say, and not for you to say, do you know what, I watch back because I learn about what I do, and not to do. It's not, it's not about that.
It's not about that. Woody Allen says he never watches any of his films after he's finished them. I just don't really believe that. I think it's just a kind of something you say to kind of, I don't know, give this.
I just find it difficult because I'm so critical about what I do. Not that this is about me, but I'm just trying to balance it from another?
I think I also enjoy watching things back because I enjoy the memories it elicits in me of. If it's something that I enjoyed working on, I enjoy the memories it elicits in me of, the day we shot that scene, I remember was the day we did that. That was a fun day on set. I remember where we were when we shot that. I remember what we had for lunch. Things like that. I kind of, it's like almost like looking back at some photos that you made. Because I kind of don't do things with gangs of mates that other people might do, and then they'll reminisce about it. I kind of reminisce about jobs that I worked on with people I got on with and enjoyed working with. So actually seeing the finished thing is a way of reliving that to a certain degree sometimes as well, which clearly says I'm not embracing the kind of reality of the thing I'm watching. Part of me is always watching it as, I can see the cracks between it and somebody was pulling a face at me off screen when we were doing that, and I remember that, or whatever it might be. But
they're lovely little truthful moments, just as much as what you're doing on screen.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
The smoke and the mirrors is all part of the wonder of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to go from short film,
yes,
to documentary.
Yes, because people still don't know why we were talking about Morris dancing, really.
I know, but even though we're still on the storytelling path. But what you've done is you've gone a completely different way from your short films. You've started to get into the documentaries. Obviously, the Way of the Morris documentary was from your past, so you had stuff to dig up there.
Yes, it was. I didn't intend to get into making documentaries at all. I didn't think that was where it would go. I'd kind of, after making the shorts, the logical next step was to try and do a narrative feature. But somewhere along the way, this epiphany happened for me to do with the Morris dancing. And it came from my uncle, who told me that the team from my village, the Adderbury Village Morrismen, were going to go to the Somme to visit the graves of the Morris dancers from the village who hadn't come back from the First World War. And when he told me that, it changed something fundamentally in me, because I knew that in the 70s, my uncle and his friends had basically revived the Morris dancing tradition in the village. As part of there was a revived interest in folk music that was going on in the mid-70s. Bands like Fairport Convention, Bob Dylan, plugging in his electric guitar and being called a Judas by the folk crowd. It was folk music was sexy for a period back then. So I knew they'd revived it because it had died out, but I'd never realised as a kid that the reason it died out is it had literally died out because the team of young men had gone to the trenches and they were all killed. They didn't come back to Adderbury, so there was no Morris dancing for 60 years. So when he told me that bit of the story suddenly resonated with me, and I realised what an amazing thing it had been that they had done that in the 70s, that they had decided to bring this dance back to life. Yeah. And they had already decided that they'd managed to track down the graves, or at least the names on the monoliths of the boys from the village. Not all of them, because the names hadn't all been recorded, but they managed to find some of the names, and they were going to go on this pilgrimage, if you like, to visit their graves. And he basically said to me, "Do you know anyone, because of your contacts, who might be interested in filming it? We think it might be something worth filming." And I thought about it for, a week or so, and I kind of thought, well, why don't I, when I do it? I know I've not made a documentary before, but I've made shorts, and I know people
how to
with
tell a
cameras,
story.
And so I said, well, look, why don't we can do it. I'll talk to some friends. We'll come with you. Let's make it happen. Let's document this. And then that slowly, then quite quickly, I guess, becomes a much bigger story that we decide to tell about kind of my relationship to the Morris dancing.
So it became personal because of this.
Yeah, we just decided that was the best way to tell the story, to kind of have, in quite a traditional Louis Theroux style, to have somebody out front who was your window into this world, who was somebody who was me, who was somebody who had grown up in a village, whose dad had been a Morris. So my dad was a Morris dancer as well as a keen drummer.
Sorry, I knew that. I didn't say.
All those guys in the Mill drama group. Not all of them, but a lot of them were part of the same Morris team. They were all mates who did Morris dancing and also did Amdram. So I was somebody who'd grown up around it, but shunned it really my entire life and never wanted to do it. Who then moved to London and become very, metrosexual. But my roots were here. It was kind of the idea that here's somebody with a foot in both worlds. Here's somebody who lives in London, doesn't Morris dance, but knows where it comes from and why they do it. And through me, we can kind of try and tell a story which treads that tricky ground, if you like, between English people's pat response to Morris dancing, which is obviously to laugh at it and ridicule it. And we were under no illusions that was kind of what you're up against if you start making a film about Morris dancing. People are just going to be tittering and, wheel out the same old jokes. They think they're the first person who's ever said it before.
But that didn't happen, did it?
No, because we tried to make something a bit deeper and a bit richer. And
Yeah.
once you hit people with that First World War story, we knew we had that in our back pocket to say, okay, you're not laughing now.
Yeah.
And also, but there's an interesting little addendum to the story in that on a day I was, around this time we're making Way of the Morris, or beginning to start making it, I was working as an actor on something called Heist. It was a one-off thing for BBC, which was a comedy, medieval comedy drama. Chris Marshall was in it. I was in it, and it was directed by a chap called Justin Hardy, who's the son of Robin Hardy, who directed The Wicker Man.
Right.
So there's a good connection there. And we were filming in Winchester, and one day during lunch break, some Morris dancers turned up, and Justin knew that I was from a family of Morris dancers, and he said, come and see the Morris, laughing, the Morris men are out. And I said, yeah, we're thinking of doing something about it. I told him the story about the World War, and he basically said to me, oh great, well yeah, and you should be in it, shouldn't you? And of course at the end, you dance, don't you? I said, no, Justin, I don't dance at the end of the film. He said, no, you mean you do? That's the film, Tim. That's clearly the film. You have to dance at the end of the film, otherwise there's no point. And he was right. So that's basically what the story of the film is. By the end of the film, I don my father's bells because he doesn't dance anymore, and join the team. And I'm still in that team now. What is it, 8-9 years later? So I am a Morris man. I am a member of the Adderbury Village Morris Men, and I try and dance at least once a year with the boys. And yeah, I've become something of an authority on it because of that film. People like you, whenever they see Morris dancing in the street, like to ring me up and tell me they've seen it, which is nice. Or ask me about, why have they got black faces? Why have those people got garlands?
Why have they
got coconuts on
Why
their
have they got
knees?
a knot in their hanky?
What's
We
going
know
on?
now. We know.
Do you call it a stick or a stave?
What do you call it?
It's up to you. It doesn't really matter.
Tim Plester, thank you so much for coming on. It's always a delight.
Thanks for having me.
And another episode is done. Tim Plester, if you're listening, thanks so much for coming on and giving up your time and chewing the fat. It was a great natter. And thank you, dear listener. Why, Craig? Why are you thanking me? I'm thanking you for all your texts and emails and tweets that we get all the time, but especially about last week's episode. Now, I did tell you, didn't I? I did warn you. It's going to be an epic chat with Danny Lee Winter. and it really was. And a lot of what he said, the messages that I've had from people, they've said, oh, that was so great because I could really relate to that, and I felt that was me at some point in my life. And that's what the podcast is all about. It's not about coming on and flogging your wares. It's about humans. It's about human stories, you know, getting to the root of it and hoping that you, the listener, can relate to it at some point. I know I certainly can. I'm as much of a listener as you guys are. So thanks to all our guests, and next week is episode 40, which will be no exception. But look, I just wanted to say that last week, we got that lovely news about the podcast awards. But when you have that kind of news, and then you have some devastating and shocking news within the space of a day, you know, it kind of puts things into perspective. I'm sure there's people out there listening who may know, may have worked, may have seen Alex Beckett's work, and it was really shocking to hear of his untimely passing last week. I'd known Alex off and on for years through friends, and the other year I was lucky enough to work with him. And, you know, he was wickedly funny and he had great energy. And yes, of course, he was a fantastic actor, but we just need to put that aside because he was a really fantastic bloke, and I was lucky enough to know him. So I want to dedicate this episode to the memory of Alex Beckett, and our love and thoughts are with his family and his close friends. So until next week, I've been Craig Parkinson, he's been producer Griff, and this has been the Two Shot Podcast. Until next week, take care and stay safe.
The Two Shot Podcast is presented by me, Craig Parkinson, recorded and produced by Thomas Griffin for Splicing Block. Our brilliant music is courtesy of Then Thickens. Cheers.